Call the order?
Yes, I'd like to call the meeting to order. We have a quorum, so we can proceed. We have 6 members of the commission who were excused. That typically happens, I think, during the holiday season, which is where we find ourselves. But first, before we begin, I'd like to introduce our new mayor, re-elected councilman, Jeff Gores, a friend of mine. Jeff I've known for quite some time, and really delighted that he's been able to join us this morning. And you're going to be able to stay for most of the meeting, unless the phone rings and some emergency happens, in which you'll take on. Oh, you don't have a phone with you?
We took his phone off when he entered the room.
Oh, Jeff. God, you're a model to us all. I don't know. We'll talk later. So anyway, I've asked Jeff if he would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance this morning.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Jeff. I think, Jeff, what I'll do, in case you'd like, under my chairman report, is to give you a chance to make any comments if you'd like, so, addressing the commission. Say hello. Okay. All right. Has the agenda been posted?
It has, Mr. Chairman.
Very good. Roll call. Nadia?
Commissioners Evans,
Present.
Altman,
Here.
President, Gudillo excused, Burke,
Here.
Clarkson,
Here.
Corcoran,
Here.
Dada excused, Feldman,
Here.
Freeman,
Yep.
Hedrick,
Here.
Hearn,
Here.
Hughes excused, Patterson excused, Pye excused, Reason,
Here.
Schmitz,
Here.
Suero excused, and Jones.
Here. Thank you. Have you reviewed the agenda? Any motion to accept it or to amend?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right. We move to the public comments now. We've had one speaker who's asked to be recognized, Jeffrey Bernstein. And Jeff, you'll have, or Jeffrey, you'll have 3 minutes. Never called you Jeff in my life.
Okay, good morning, Chairman Jones, Dr. Nolan, Mayor Gores, Commissioners, staff, Dr. Reddy. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. My name is Jeffrey Bernstein. I'm the owner of Destination PSP, a locally owned and operated retail business. I'm also on the board of Main Street, the business Uptown and Downtown Business Association. As some of you know, I've been speaking to staff, city, and council in this commission, especially Dr. Reddy and Mr. Nolan, for 6 years, encouraging local flavor and small business participation in the concessions at this airport. I believe we have one of the best airports in the country in terms of staff, operations, ease, and appearance, but they were clearly lacking in the concessions department, while other airports across the country are changing. I was extremely excited by the Recondo report, which the commission endorsed, the city council approved. That would include small business and local flavor and expand retail space by up to 7,600 square feet. But it's also clear that the expanded space will not be ready by October 2020. So I would therefore encourage you to move forward with a 2-phase approach. We can make changes quickly to the existing retail and other food concession operations. This would make a huge impact. We already are aware that hospitality, tourism, and convention bureaus are all using the airport as an attraction. But the concessions need to be kept up to speed. Now, I realize it raises certain issues of having a 2-phase approach, about having a right of first refusal or who gets into the second space. But from a small business point of view, I believe that if you include additional or even more small business and local flavor options in the second phase, it will be a better option for everybody. The reason being that for a small business to go into an airport, whether it's with a master concessionaire or on its own, is extremely daunting and challenging project. Having the experience of an initial phase where some of us could actually try and participate and others could learn from our experience in phase 2 would be a benefit to all of us. Most importantly, I would encourage you to move forward as quickly as possible with the RFP, speak to City Council so they understand the timeline. For a small business to do this is extremely difficult. A lot of small businesses in this area have never had this opportunity before. So while the master concessionaires know what they're doing, small businesses need extra time and help from the city. So with that, I want to thank you for the consideration. I do hope to see the RFP very shortly, and hopefully we have a new session operation ready October 2020. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeffrey. All right, we move on now to the approval of the minutes. You have the minutes before you. Are there any additions, deletions, corrections? Bill?
Mr. Chairman, I don't have any additions, but I have a comment on the minutes, approval of the minutes.
Okay.
Prior meetings, I've heard commissioners say, well, I wasn't at that last meeting, so I have to
Abstention.
abstain. Well, I did some research and on that. Robert's Rules of Order, big book, 700 and some pages. Anyway, let me just read one sentence here from the section that deals with approval of minutes. It says, "It should be noted that a member's absence from the meeting for which minutes are being approved does not prevent the member from participating in the correction or approval of those minutes."
Doesn't require that they can, but they
Okay,
can.
let me go a little bit further. I did a little more research, found out there are very few valid reasons to abstain from voting. And there's just being absent is not really a valid reason. In fact, doing some more research, some of the parliamentarians who analyze and interpret the rules say that if you don't have a valid reason to vote, that you're going to abstain, you're not fulfilling your fiduciary responsibility and obligation to vote. And they say that unless you've got a good reason for abstaining, you should vote. Anyway, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I appreciate you bringing that to attention. However, I would continue to abstain on minutes because of actions that I wasn't there to participate in, and I wouldn't want the public record. And I've done this in other committees that I'm in across the state and in Sacramento, as well as congressional committees that I chaired. I still prefer, my personal opinion, it's up to each individual commissioner. But if I wasn't there and there were issues of substance that were discussed that reflected in the minutes, I don't want to give the appearance that I was part of that discussion. But that's my own personal preference. And I think that is a valid reason, but we leave that to the conscience of each commissioner. So with that kind of
I've got
prelude.
something too,
Sure.
just real quick. I think we're supposed to be governed by Rosenberg's Rules of Order, not Roberts. I don't know that it's any different on this issue.
I think they're the same.
I think they're the
So
same,
close.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think they're the same.
Yeah.
Well, with that said,
Well, no, I
yes,
have
go
one other
ahead,
thing,
keep going.
too. In the minutes, it was recorded that the city manager committed to consider or put the matter about the noise commission or the noise committee before the city council on their first meeting in January.
Mhm.
I heard him say maybe January. I don't know whether he's actually committed to have that as the first meeting in January or not.
Actually, I was trying to get it on for the 19th
That'd be
of this
great.
month.
That'd be great.
Except as soon as I get the staff report from the airport staff, then we'll know whether it's going to go 19th, but it will no later than the first meeting in January.
Okay.
But I'm shooting for the 19th.
Okay, all right, great.
Very good. Okay. Is that okay, Jeff? Okay, all right. Any other?
Oh, and by the way, Mr. Chairman, thank you
Yes.
for your memo. That was quite well done.
Okay, sure.
Thank you.
Well,
We'll attach that.
okay, great.
We've clearly had discussion about the minutes. Are there any corrections or additions beyond what we've talked about? Do I hear a motion to approve?
I move to approve the minutes.
Thank you. Second. You got who? Bill first and Peter second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
Abstention? We have one abstention. Okay, now we move to the chairman's report, but it's my distinct pleasure to reintroduce Jeff Kors, our mayor, and ask Jeff if you would like to make any comments to the commission.
Sure, just really briefly, I'm just really happy to be here. I really want to thank all of you for your work, Director Nolan and the staff. And this is, because Jeffrey said, such a great airport and part of our city. And I'm a liaison to all the tourism-related organizations. Councilman Roberts wanted this, so he was the person. council will vote on all liaisons on January 9th, but it will probably be logical that I serve in this role, and I plan to come to meetings unless I have something else I have to do. So I look forward to working with them.
Great, thank you, Jeff. What some of the commissioners may not know who are not part of Palm Springs, 10 of us are Palm Springs, the other 9 are outside of the city, is we went to district elections for the first time. So we have 5 districts, and districts 1, 2, and 3 is where the elections occurred, and districts 4 and 5 will be next fall. And also there was the decision of the city council that it would be a rotating mayor. So there was no citywide election of a mayor, but a rotation of a mayor. And Jeff was mayor pro tem this last year and has moved into the position as mayor. So delighted to have you in that role, Jeff. Okay, as is our tradition, we have 2 of the 3 who had not had an opportunity to introduce themselves to the commission. We have down Richard Altman. So Richard, if you take 2 or 3 minutes to share with us your background and experience. And
Good morning. I come from corporate America. I've been involved with
the
the
other one's not here.
Palm Springs area since 1979. I own a resort in Cathedral City. I'm very active in the hotel business in Palm Springs and Cathedral City.
Okay, that does it, thank you. Now, real quickly, because we do have a full meeting, just reviewing the committee roster again, as some of you know, we had to make an adjustment on the marketing committee because we had too many members. We have to stay within 9, so we can't have a majority on any committee. We have 9 on the budget committee. We have currently 8 on the operations committee. We have 5 on the noise committee and 5 on the landscape committee. So I was just going to check, you don't have to let me know now, but if you would like to let me know via email or phone call, if any of you would like to also join the noise and or the landscape committee. We have 1 spot remaining on the operations committee, and Jan chairs that, and he's going to make a report this morning. But if you would like to consider involvement on another committee, please let me know. And we'll leave that at that. Also, attendance at committee meetings, very quickly. As you know, I took myself off a couple of committees in order to get within the requirements. But I can still attend, and any commissioner can attend any of the committee meetings. But unless the chair recognizes us, we are not allowed to make any we can't make enter into the conversation or ask questions. We're there simply to be able to listen to the conversations. It's going to come to the full commission anyway, whatever recommendations occur at the committee meetings, unless the chair recognizes individuals to speak, which is the purview of the chair at any time. So I just thought I would let you know, even though you may not be on a particular committee, you're certainly welcome to attend those committee meetings and hear the discussions. And that was all I wanted to mention there. So we move, yes,
Just
sir.
one thing, if the committee is at the 9 number,
Yeah,
another commissioner can't speak, because that would break the Brown Act, because you have a majority deliberating. So we're allowed to attend, but we can't, if it's a subcommittee of 2, another person can sit in the back of the room, we're not even allowed to roll our eyes, or give any signal
Right.
of how we think. So in a smaller committee, you could do that, but I don't think you can do it if you have the full committee, because of the Brown Act.
I've reviewed that. I'm going to go back and check on that, Jeff.
Check with the city attorney, because they've been really clear with us.
Yeah.
You can't,
Okay.
majority
I would go with
deliberate.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just in those cases, someone can come, but they really need to sit in the back
Sit
and
and
not
observe.
offer
Right.
any indication what they think.
Right. Well, that's true. You can't give
It's
an
only
indication.
when you have a full committee.
Yes, when you
When you
can't have
got
a
it.
majority of the commission deliberate
Right.
before, not in.
And that's what we hit with the marketing committee, which is why we like that.
Point 1.
Okay, moving forward, introductions and presentations.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for taking time out of your busy day. Steve Bowser, the Deputy Director of Maintenance Operations and Safety, has spent 10 great years at the great PSP Airport. His last full day is today. We're going to go out for a lunch tomorrow, and then he's going to hit the road driving back to Ohio. Steve, we appreciate the plaque that we are having made. It didn't make the bill for the meeting, but we will certainly give it to you tomorrow during our luncheon. Do you want to say anything?
Yes, thank you, Tom, Mr. Chairman. It's been a great ride, 10 years. It's been my pleasure to serve the airport, the city, and most of all, the team that we have assembled here. Good team. Gonna miss you all, but it's great to move on to. Thank you.
Steve, thank you very much. concludes my presentation.
Okay, we move next to the city manager report. Mr. Reddy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everyone, and again, welcome, Mayor. I'm glad you're here. As you know, the Mayor will be the liaison to the airport. Councilmember Roberts is off the council, so as you know, we've got lots to do. A couple things to update you on the marketing position. We had about 18 applicants. Some were sort of, I think, superstars more than others. The recruiter is finalizing her final reviews with each of the candidates, and she's going to narrow it down to the top most qualified 5. And then we'll proceed with interviews. And Mr. Chairman, again, I trust that the subcommittee or some group from here will join me in the interviews with Tom.
Okay.
And the goal is, what she thinks she'll have that list for us because of the holidays. Hopefully, we actually get scheduled maybe that early January, no later than mid-January. So we'll actually get a calendar. So whoever you want to join us, the subcommittee, that would be appreciated.
What do you consider the ideal number of commissioners to help with the interviews?
I would say no more than 2.
Okay, all right.
If you're okay with that.
All
So
right,
it'll be
yeah.
myself, obviously Tom, and 2 members of the subcommittee.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
may I have a recommendation? I would like to see Commissioner Dada and Vice Chairman Hearn to represent. They're both on the marketing committee. They're both on the board of directors of the Greater Palm Springs CBD. The marketing director will interface with commissioners here and with the board of directors. So I think they were uniquely qualified. As you know, Commissioner Dada was on the search committee that led to the successful hiring of Scott White as president. So I think he has vast experience. So from my perspective, I would like to see Commissioner Dada and Vice Chairman Hearn to be those.
Okay, well, take that under advice. I'm going to have a discussion with Tom. I was going to consult with you anyway as chair of the marketing committee. So, and I made a note of that. So thank you for that, Peter. We'll move forward.
Well, we could accommodate 3 if you need 3. All right, so we can be flexible on
All
that
right,
for sure.
okay.
So that was one position, Mr. Chairman. Secondly, on the engineering position, that one's been a little more difficult. We've had 4 applicants, none of which that we felt were up to it. They were more on the architectural side than engineering side. So we decided to keep that one open to make sure we have the best candidate. We're also going to start talking with Tom. In the interim, we may want to have some outside engineering firms, additional resources to help us. But hopefully in the new year, we can get some candidates. So there's that one. The only final thing I'd like to mention is that we have a new position over at City Hall in our personnel department that deals with safety, safety conditions, OSHA, all of that. And it's a relatively new position that the council has allowed us to do. Because ultimately, there's nothing more important than employees realizing that we care about their safety. As you know, we've had that accident here a few years ago, and so they've done reports citywide in each of the facilities, also in the airport. So that report is done, and I just want to let you know that we're focused on anything that's in there that remotely could be an issue for any employee that we're fixing. And so probably at the next meeting, Tom will probably be able to have an update on where we are on each of those things. So anyway, I just want to let you know we're sensitive to that, we're looking at it, and we're going to make sure that each employee feels safe.
Great. Thank you, David.
On the engineering position, where would somebody find, if it's still open, to apply?
City HR website.
Through the website?
Yes,
or-
through the website for certain, or they could, contact any of staff, we'll get them.
Okay.
And actually, they've been advertising that wide. We're pulling all our ads are basically ending this month. We're pulling them all off. We're going to start fresh again with some new ads early in the year.
Very good. Any other questions? Nope. Then, thank you, David. Tom, turning now to the budget report.
Thank you. Mark, do you want to make some comments?
Thank you, Tom. Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, Mayor, David. It's a it's a great group we have here today, and in your packet you have the financial report. Again, it's a good news story. Our traffic, as you know, year-to-date is up 13%, and with that, our revenues at the airport are up 17.1% compared to last year. So our passengers are a very key element with our revenues, and that continues to track in a very positive manner. Virtually all of our revenues are up. Some of them appear to be slightly down just because of a timing issue, and not all things have been posted yet in the month of November. So with that, the revenues are in great shape, and expenses also are under budget. Moving to the last page, you can see that all of the balances in the four accounts. The CFC account is positive, the PFC account is positive, and we just went through the refunding of the PFC bonds last year, so that's in great shape. The M&O budget is, revenues are ahead of expenses, and capital projects are typically behind because we only get reimbursed for matching share from our grants. With that, all of our cash balances are virtually the same as last month and in a very positive position. So it's a very good report at this time.
Very good. Any questions of Mark on the budget? It's very healthy, very positive. Of course, we have an increased passenger groups that are coming through, and that's always good.
That is very good.
No questions?
Maybe I have one.
Yes.
Maybe unrelated, but have any airlines taken us up on the incentive offer?
Yes, Contour Air did
Yeah.
for Sacramento
In Alaska.
and Alaska.
And so how much was that?
Well, it's still being calculated. It's based on their actual activity on a monthly basis. They get an abatement in their fees.
And I have to say, as I reported before, I take Contour about 2 or 3 times a month because I have to go to Sacramento almost every other week. And it's been a great, it leaves here at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, gets up there at 2:30, and I schedule meetings for the rest of the day. And it's, some of you I think were at the launch. It's a 30-seat plane. It's one of the most comfortable planes I've been in, but it's, all of the comments I've gotten over the years, it was, could we somehow get a flight between Palm Springs and Sacramento? So people didn't have to drive to Ontario in order to do it.
I'm just thinking when Norm was on the commission, there was a commitment to have a report about the incentives and whether airlines were taking advantage of that or not, so.
That's good.
That one's being worked out though, so, and Tom can report to us at a later meeting on that.
And they have committed through the end of the year, right?
Pardon me?
Next year. Contour.
Oh, yeah. And I will say their passenger load's been pretty good coming in from Sacramento. It's a turnaround flight. It comes in here and turns right around and goes right back to Sacramento. I mean, it leaves Sacramento to come down here, I think it's at 10 in the morning, which is a difficult thing if you're up there for the day. But their passenger load has been pretty good coming down, and it's increasing going up as well. So, as I say, I've taken it 3 or 4 times already, and I already have reservations again for next week. So, no other questions on the budget and finance report? All right, now we go to the discussion items. I'm going to turn to Tom for the first one regarding the FAA Airport Capital.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. For those of you that are new on the commission, every year, first let me refer you to page 11A of your report. If you haven't read it, that would be very helpful if you did. But every year, the airport must put together an airport capital improvement program, which I'll use the acronym ACIP. That is to seek FAA funding in 2 sources, either entitlement and or discretionary funding. We have been very successful over the course of the years here at PSP Airport, but in order to posture the airport for future year participation in FAA funding, we've got to put together this program. As I mentioned in the report, the program is a culmination of consultant input, FAA guidance, regulatory issues, current issues, master plan driving the capacity constraints and so forth. And it's taken a lot of thought. It is a dynamic document. It does not insinuate in any way, shape, or form that the FAA will guarantee funding. As you know, it's ultimately the federal government through the Department of Transportation that has to authorize. And that's been somewhat waffly over the years. In fact, they've had to extend that funding. It's put us in a few precarious as well as other airports over the years. So with that being said, I'd like to present to you today our discussion with the FAA and what we've pretty much made them feel comfortable with. So as we look, you don't want to do that? I should have made those presentations, Mr. Chairman. I forgot all about them. Do you mind?
No,
I might as well put it here. Yeah, let's look at that. we're expanding our checkpoint. There's the checkpoint. This is where the operations office used to be. And there's a utility pit there, and there it is being filled as of yesterday. Isn't that exciting? That's a great capital. Small, but big return on investment. So, Mark, one of the driving factors is we as an airport accumulate entitlement funding predicated on the number of passengers we handle. On the average, we've been generating about $4 million a year. That'll continue to increase or decrease depending on our passenger traffic. So what we do, working with the FAA, start with our balance and know what we have to spend from entitlement funding. This is current year, our ticking wing capacity project is well underway. TSA checkpoint capacity management, you can see the construction walls up in the terminal. The specifications for the passenger boarding bridge, we've already begun the design analysis and design on that. The acquisition of 2 aircraft rescue and firefighting vehicles, and then the pavement condition inventory, which has been done. The report is being assimilated as we speak. So in the ensuing years, our 5-year plan laid out here, you can see in the next year, we have the passenger boarding bridge acquisition using entitlement funding. We want to design as the master plan identified in the years to come. We think that the regional concourse is going to need some type of modification in order to make utilization of the gates there and so forth. It gets a little more technical, but at this point we would appropriate about $500,000 in design funds for that. The FAA recognized that. We still have to justify at a later date whether it's a legitimate, fully legitimate, substantiated by data and so forth, whether it is substantiated as a capacity project. We like to pick up debris off of our airfields when we get it. We don't get a lot of it, but when we do, we need to make sure it's clean. The equipment we have now is old and tired, and so that does qualify for some FAA funding. We'll also do that. Looking at the next year, you can see we have about 6 miles of perimeter fencing. That's very instrumental, Mr. Chairman, to the security of the airport, as is many other things. So what we're going to do is, about 4 years ago, we rebuilt a certain amount of that. We're going to rebuild some more, do a lot of things I probably shouldn't be discussing in a public setting from a security standpoint, and that'll be designed for that. If all goes well, with the justification for the regional concourse, we hope to create a pier that will allow passengers. I don't know if anyone's flown out of the regional, but there are 3 gates that we've added over the years, parking position. The original regional gate only had 8 positions. Given we're doing so well and the demand for the larger aircraft at the Bono, that's becoming saturated during peak time. As much as we want airlines to maybe change their schedules, we don't want to put ourselves in a position where we're forced. So to facilitate that, we put in 3 new parking positions. That's been there for about 2 years now. Some of you may have used it where you got to walk probably about 75 yards out to that.
More than
so
that.
This pier would actually take people in comfort, air conditioned, and so forth, and add a tad more capacity there. If we're lucky in getting that justified. We have one taxiway that parallels our main runway. If you look at that map over there, we have our 2-mile runway, and there's a 2-mile taxiway. Wonderful. You did very good. Except that's the other taxiway. Here's our long taxiway that goes for 2 miles there. It's getting a little tired. So our pavement condition report said in a couple of years we're going to have to do a mill and overlay. Keep in mind we've done both runways, our apron. We're good for those for another decade and a half, maybe 2 decades, and this is going to need some patch up. Unfortunately, that's very expensive to do asphalt, as you know. Now, the car rental project is underway. Gensler is on board. We're designing, gathering the data, and a lot more to come on that. But that is not AIP eligible to be funded. In fact, it's taboo to even discuss that in the meeting when I'm discussing FAA entitlement funding. But when that project is done, one of the impetus for that project was to move the car rental counters and offices out of the bay claim area into the beautiful new structure. That gives us the ability then to utilize that entire area for solely baggage claim handling. And we're going to put state-of-the-art equipment in there to allow the handling of oversized bags and to improve the efficiency of the retrieval process. We all know right now that during peak time, peak hour, it gets busy down there. So this project is in alignment with the car rental, and that will trigger the design of the bag claim modernization there. Here's that taxiway rehabilitation, $9.5 million for pavement. It's a lot of money necessary, and actually it's the highest priority item on this list for the FAA. Security fence construction, you can see that happening there. Master plan update, maybe time to do another master plan update. The FAA doesn't think so unless there's really a triggering event. We had that discussion just Monday. We'll wait and see, but we have it as a placeholder. That may probably end up coming off in the long run. And then, of course, construct the bag claim modernization system, Mr. Chairman. And all of these projects are instrumental to the safe and efficient operation of the airport. Now, here's something that needs to be discussed. There's entitlement funding, which every airport earns, but then there's discretionary. And the definition of discretionary is exactly how the FAA handles that. At their discretion, they will appropriate to an airport. Now, this region of the FAA handles about 5 states. We're competing with SFO, LAX, Phoenix, and so forth. We were successful four years ago in getting about 6 or 7 million for the runway rehab. And that was after 3 years of planning with the FAA, because all the big guns in the state, San Francisco was doing a $150 million discretionary taxiway something. I think we're as important, but unfortunately the FAA has a little different opinion. My point is this. We've positioned this out here. Well, let me back up one last thing. In order to be positioned for discretionary funding, we have to have expended all of our entitlement. Tricky. So what we have to do strategically is have justifiable projects and then expend that funding and be eligible. And we're talking $4.5 million. So that's programmed now. We hope to be in that position. Things could change. DOT changes authorization for AIP and so forth. So that plan is said and done. Our normal match is 10% local match. And we look at that total, the totals there rolling in, and that's the plan. The FAA liked it, and we've been reasonably successful. So we would look for the approval. Again, this plan is dynamic. An event or something could change. And but we've been pretty good successful with it.
Why is there a year gap between the design of the bag system and the construction?
Because of other priorities and the timing of things and the procurement, the fiscal year, and all the variables.
So you can't construct the baggage system in 22?
We
design is
don't
finished?
believe that the car rental project will be done by then.
Okay.
Remember, the car rentals have to move out?
Okay, so it's possible that the design would have to move into the next
No,
year?
the design could, you can design it and still keep
Before
that
this
on.
finishes.
Sure.
Okay.
Get that on the back, yeah.
Excuse me, Tom.
Yes, sir.
Where does the creation or the potential creation of an international gate intersect with the dialogue with the FAA?
What international gate?
I'm asking about the one that I'm proposing as a possible discussion point.
That,
If we were to have an interest in having an international gate, because business might demand that or be created around that, how would that intersect
That
with the
would have
dialogue
to
with the
be
FAA?
incorporated in future year CIPs.
So the
Yes,
master
yes.
plan possibly?
The master plan would be a good avenue for that.
Okay.
Yes, good question.
And what is your thinking around a update of the master plan?
The FAA indicates there has to be a triggering event. They didn't see a triggering event. They really don't believe they want to spend $500,000 on a new master plan, and this is really their master plan. So at this point, they're just off and on that.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll start, and then second.
For David's question you just asked, it is on the agenda of the Operations Committee. We just didn't get around to it the last time, and so I expect it to be on the next meeting. Right, Jan?
Yeah, we will, the date is yet to be set, but we need to get together on that item. It was an item for the Operations Committee when we met on the 2nd of December, but we never got to that item. So we will need to have
To be determined.
Right.
a meeting in the future.
Not
Yeah.
to be-
Right.
Yeah. I mean, so it's scheduled to be discussed, yes.
But I understand today, we can get flights from Ireland because they do pre-clear in Ireland, so.
And Canada.
Mhm. Yeah, that's how we get flights from Canada.
In Doha, but I doubt that.
Doha.
Qatari, the Qataris are anxious to come here.
Do we have other questions on this report?
Medical and tourism.
What do you need from us?
A motion to support?
Right? Do we have a motion? You so moved? Okay, second. Kevin seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. We turn now to Jan, Chair of the Operations Committee. Let me just refresh who's on the Operations Committee. Patricia Breslin, Todd Burke, Peter, Kathleen Hughes, Jan Pye, Bill Reeson, Jan Schmidt, and Guillermo Suero. So, just so that you know. Go ahead.
Well, as indicated, we did get together, the Operations Committee, and we did have a quorum. That's not always been the case in the past. We got together on the 2nd of December to talk about the concessions program, as well as the U.S. Customs facility that would go along with international traffic. As mentioned, we never got to the second item. Our meeting lasted almost an hour and a quarter, and it was completely focused on the concessions program. The concessions program that the board had endorsed in March and the Palm Springs City Council had approved. But this was an update, and we found that in the development of the RFP for the concession program, that the central area just past Starbucks in the secure area needed a lot of thought and a lot of work to scope it out. And it was starting to become clear that if the airport wanted to proceed or needed to proceed with the concession program in a timely manner, that a phased approach would be necessary. Taking the existing concession program as the first phase and the central area as the second phase. The discussion that we had then went into a number of various issues surrounding that. It was a new approach. The original approach, of course, had everything contained within the RFP. Now we were splitting it up. So there was a lot of discussion, a bit of dissension in the ranks, and we did reach a point where we put a motion on the table to proceed with a multi-phase approach, a two-phase approach. Put out the RFPs as rapidly as we possibly could for the first phase, and then bring on an architect to help us scope out and do the estimates that were necessary for the second phase. Again, there were a number of issues discussed back and forth. The motion that we put on the table did not pass. There were 2 in favor, 2 opposed, and 1 abstention, and so we decided that we would put it forward to the commission today. And on that note, I think, Tom, you have a presentation.
Mr. Chairman, so the 2 that were opposed, what was their thoughts on opposing that two-phase approach?
Let the chair, please.
One of the ideas that was brought forth was that if you were going to break it up into 2 phases, how would you manage the second phase? And there was some discussion that the airport might want to put in to the RFP that there was a first right of refusal on the second phase for the successful bidder or bidders on the first phase.
Correction, the consultant recommended that.
Okay, the consultant recommended that.
Consultant.
So noted. And I believe the committee pretty much did not like that idea at all. Because we were of the opinion that that would stop more competition in the future.
Now, could I ask, so council's modification to the rotunda of a restaurant bar, now was that presumed in phase one or
Yes,
phase two?
it'll be in phase one.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
We'll be in it.
The only scope in phase two is the central area.
Okay, so turning now to Tom.
Well, would you advance that, please? No, indeed. So, Mark, why don't you, this is a consultant report on issues pertinent to this. So, Mark, why don't you go give a presentation on that?
So this slide has a lot of information, but we tried to summarize some of the things that came up at the committee meeting last week. It was a very lively discussion. So just to go through this for the full airport commission, the anticipated goal of the new concession program would be to have it available by next October. So that is the key focus. We also wanted to remind the full commission the seasonality at PSP with the red graph, just to emphasize, we want to get any construction remodeling, those phases done in summer and early fall to be ready for November, and once we get into that busy holiday season, and then we certainly hit our peak in January through April timeframe. So with that just kind of walks you through the program. The next slide points out some of the things that we have to do. The evaluation criteria, now that we expect to get direction on this phased approach, we can put together an RFP. We hope to have that available by the first week of February. So that is the goal for that process. We also need to draft a concession agreement and a contract, and then design the guidelines and the expectations that we want to put in the agreement, with such things as hours of operation, which facilities would have to be open on a continual basis, and which locations would have flexibility, which locations are going to be designated for local, which facilities are going to be more of a national flavor, some of those key details. Some of the things the city will be involved with, of course, with reviewing the documents, of course, the architectural approvals, that some of the key things that we look for in the agreement, and legal counsel will be working with them closely to review all the documentation, and certainly the new draft contract that we want to make part of the RFP process. Other things that we hope to have done and hope to schedule by the end of January would be the FAA review and approval of the time frame on this. That'll become a little more clear with future slides, but anytime we have an agreement for a contract such as this, which involves competition in the betterment of the airport, anything with the term of over 5 years, the FAA wants to review and approve the justification that you're looking for in the future. And then, we want to do a local outreach and have that available before the RFP hits the street sometime in February. The next slide reflects just some of the outline that we expect to do as we look at the performa, and Wakanda ran some of the numbers. Some of the key elements with expanding and improving, especially the food and beverage locations, we expect the sales per enplaned passenger for food and beverage to increase by up to $3 per person. That will be significant. So we want to make certain that the food offerings have a nice wide variety mixed with local and other sort of concepts that customers are attracted to. The retail would be expected to increase by at least 25 cents. Right now we have some of the highest retail sales for airports our size in the nation. So with the improvements to the program, we continue to expect that to increase as well. The assumed capital cost for the build-out, this is based on history of other airports, recent events. For example, New Orleans was a key element. New Orleans just built a new terminal and offered a lot of new concession spaces for everyone. And this is some of the numbers that they looked at for the build out for the retail, about $600 a square foot, food and beverage about $800 a square foot. And with the complete remodel that we need to be seen here, the reason for food and beverage, of course, being higher per square foot is they have all the kitchen equipment and all the back office facilities that here are 20 years old and they're getting very tired. So we would expect our investment to run in line with this, and this is probably what some of the major vendors would anticipate as well. And then put into the performance, assume labor costs, cost of goods, other things, running into about the 75 percentile. And then the last, on the left, the assumed rental rates that the airport would get somewhere between 11 and 13% of the gross of those sales, and that becomes our rent for those spaces. With that, based on the square footage available, we'd expect food and beverage to invest about $9.2 million. We'd expect retail to invest about $6.1. So we have a total investment anticipated of over $15 million with the phase one, as we're talking about
So
right
more
now.
question, if I could. So $9 million investment in food and beverage in phase one, that's basically they're just renovating their current spaces. So that seems like a high expense just for those current spaces for renovation.
It is a high expense.
Or does that include the rotunda?
That includes the rotunda. And so as we've looked at this and we've gotten input from the committee, we certainly want to add square footage where we can. So we actually, in phase one, we'll be adding 4 different locations. The rotunda would clearly be one, and that is going to take some dollars to renovate, demolish existing space, and then build new. We also have some other, about 1,000 square feet up on the Bono that could become available. We expect to offer a kiosk area in the courtyard, and then also do some expansion down on the RJ concourse as well. So this incorporates that.
Now, the Bono it will be, it's part of city council's directive that include that fountain area. Be removed and have a concession put in there. So that'll be.
Right, so that's included in the $9 million.
So that's where it adds up quickly. We spent $1.4 million just to move a few walls in the terminal.
So with that, with this slide, typically industry average would indicate that for a $1 million investment, the vendors would get about 1 year in a term. So with that, we would expect the term to be somewhere in the vicinity of about a 15-year term at this juncture to get the necessary return for the capital improvements that will be made.
And that's without phase two.
So this is the last slide, and it really kind of reflects the pros and cons of doing a first right of refusal or offering things with the new concession.
This is the consultant speaking. This is not us. This is just their thoughts.
So this slide is designed for discussion, and we really have no preconceived notion on how to handle the phase one and the phase two. The key element that we've heard over and over and over again, we want to move forward, and in order to do that smartly, as Mr. Bernstein commented, that there is support for moving forward, and we can do that at this point.
Well, why don't you just read what the consultant says out loud? That's
Sure.
Rather than narrate on it, it's good to hear what he has to say.
So, up in the upper left-hand corner, the first right of refusal of pros, this gives the future incumbents confidence in the business opportunity of the 2020 solicitation and allows them to incorporate the annex into their proposals as part of the midterm refresh. So one of the things we need to consider of the investment expected, if we do a 15-year term, there needs to be some dollars set aside for a midterm refresh, because whatever they do is not going to last the full term of the agreement, whether it's adding space in the annex area or refreshing the existing space.
Second what's the con for that, Mark?
So below that, future incumbents may not want to build out much space in the annex, since it could dilute the performance of the existing locations. So it's just something to consider. If they invest a significant amount of dollars, they may not want to add another 4,000 to 5,000 square feet in the annex area unless we see a dramatic increase in traffic as we move on.
So keep in mind, we keep on hearing this over and over from concessionaires, from airlines, from car rentals. The seasonality makes it very unattractive from a concession standpoint. That's a fact. Until that changes, until our season extends throughout the year. And that's what's really upsetting the apple cart a little bit about the level of interest. You can see the investment in just phase one was significant. We anticipate phase two could be anywhere near or more than that. So on the right side, Mark,
So the pros with a new concession program, if we with phase two, if we offer a new solicitation, it could increase the competition among the concessionaires. So that's the offset, and it's something we need to consider as we put the RFP together. And the anti-new concession, the build out of the annex is likely to be, it may be too expensive to justify on a standalone basis. It may have to be bundled with less expensive existing locations. So there's a concentration risk on how much can this market absorb. And the concessionaires clearly will want a return on their investment. So this kind of lays out the pros and cons of that very important discussion point. And
Well, Mr. Chairman of the Ops Committee, that was pretty much reflective of the committee itself.
Yes.
Is There's arguments on both sides. So this almost begs to say, let's do phase one successfully and then cross that bridge in phase two without committing either way in the first phase. Does that, perhaps, is that part of the interpretation? I don't know.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, let's get this done and get on the...
So Jan, before we open discussion, I'm inclined this time to see if we... Pardon me?
Are we done with the presentation?
Yes, sir.
that's
Yes,
not
we are done with the presentation, sorry. Is to see what, my inclination is to ask for a motion first and then have a discussion on it, to kind of move us along. And if you would like to offer a motion, Jan, based upon the discussions?
Yes. I would move that we proceed with the concession program on a two-phase approach, that we proceed to put the RFP for the first phase in place by February, and that we bring on board as early as possible an architect to help us scope out the second phase.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you, Patricia. All right, now we're open for discussion.
Could you maybe clarify this, the location issue with your first and the second? Are we talking about concessions in the first phase in a certain location, and in the second phase, other concessions in a different location?
Yeah.
Or are they all in the same area?
No, in different areas. So we're replacing the current concessions and adding 4 more areas. That's phase one.
Well, sorry,
11:55.
which one? Which location? Where? Bono or?
So I've got a slide. You want me to put the slide up? We'll help clarify that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. I
Do you want to go to that
yeah.
slide, please?
I wasn't aware the slide was
Use it. It goes back to the original.
So currently we have 12 locations. We have 7 locations for food and beverage, and we have 5 locations for news and gift. And we certainly plan to use those locations in the future. In addition to that, we've identified the added space A, B, C, and D. Space A would be the Bono Fountain area, which is roughly 900 square feet. And just below that, we have the Bono Kiosk Food area, which currently is kind of a seating area and kind of underutilized. So space B is about 1,000 square feet that we could offer and make available for something that complements the food and beverage offerings. And then location C would be a gift kiosk, roughly in the area where the car is right now. We have a vehicle using the space out there for advertising. We would open that up to a gift kiosk, which we think would be, from a seasonal standpoint, much higher use. And if you notice, all 3 of those locations are geared so that customers going to the Bono are going to see all those very clearly. They don't have to turn, they don't have to pass. All these locations are going to be very obvious to the 70% of our customers that use the Bono concourse. In addition to that, space D would be another food offering on the regional concourse. So those would be the 4 additional locations, in addition to the 12 we have now.
And that would all be part of the first phase?
First phase,
Right. That's what I wanted.
So that would add about 3,000 square feet and would certainly give us more capacity than we have today. And then the space in the green, the annex area, is the space that we would continue to evaluate and bring forward in a later point.
That would be phase 2.
So because, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
you don't have on there the downstairs restaurant space, which is a large space, underutilized, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that could be modified into something else.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately. So my question is, given the seasonality, given that you have these new spaces you're going to add, particularly the rotunda and the others, and the downstairs portion that's underutilized now, if you go with it conceptually, do you really even need that annex thing probably for 10 years? 5 years, 10 years? I don't know that, I think, I'm almost wondering how soon you need that. So that may come into play to part of this decision in phase 1 and phase 2.
That's why we kick it off to phase 2.
And it was part of the discussion that was
Right.
in the committee.
Exactly,
Okay.
yeah.
Good observation, that's exactly right.
I will say that restaurant downstairs, now that I take contours so much to Sacramento, there are days I can't even get into there, because I try to come here for lunch first, and that thing is completely full. It's amazing. It's really heavily utilized during peak times.
Well, can I make one comment to that effect? We get unsolicited input from concessionaires. Kitchen space is very non-abundant here. That little kitchen on the Bono cannot serve the amount of people that are making orders. This location in the building, apparently my office used to be a restaurant on the second floor. Does anybody remember that?
Yeah, I remember that.
So the kitchen down here is actually massive. The problem is it's a little offshoot from the flow of the traffic. There are thoughts that concessionaires would make this a master kitchen, which is the new innovative technique used at a lot of airports, where you sit with a kiosk and put in 5 different types of orders, and then the kitchen gets it, they actually formulate it, and they bring it out within 100 feet to the cart. So ironically, that may bode well for the future.
Yeah. But Mr. Wright, I think that's why we talked about moving this off to phase 2 and moving forward expeditiously on phase 1. And as we heard the community comment this morning, that from their standpoint would be their position to go as well forward. Peter.
Yeah, I have a statement and a question. I mean, first, I still want to go back to what David asked before, why didn't get out of the committee or who opposed it. I was one who opposed it. I can tell you, if I would have had the information that we have today, I would have moved in favor of it, but that information wasn't there. So just want to explain that to you. Then I have a question, and that relates to the fountain build-out. I recall that Ulysses had some concerns about building out that concession because it may be blocking gate space. Has that been resolved?
Yes, initially the consultant suggested that we had about 1,500 square feet in that area, and that would have blocked the access to gate 10 and 11 area. So as we look at that, we clearly want to make sure that pathway is clear, free, and open, and there's a continuous circulation. So we reduced that space down to 900 square feet, so that eliminates that problem.
It will obstruct nothing more than what the fountain's already doing,
Right.
and it will have a concession
That
that
has
will
been
fit.
resolved.
Yeah, and that was Peter's question.
It'll be a great concession.
Yeah.
I have
Yes.
a question. There's a low-slung building between here and the regional concourse that looks like, to me, that it was former bathrooms.
Yeah, it is.
I haven't seen that come up for discussion. It's a place that gets 100% passage of customers on the way to the terminal.
Regional
I'm wondering how, regional terminal.
We did look at that, but because it is restrooms now that are needed for all the staff, that hundreds of employees, and it just doesn't.
Okay,
it
those
just
are
isn't.
used.
So what we're,
I
in
thought that building was
that
closed out.
ultimate phase, which the city manager alluded to out here, there's certainly an area right along here by the John F. Kennedy statue. Here's those bathrooms. This would be a great way to put some concessions in that are accessible from the Bono, and maybe something here. And that's why the annex was so powerful, but it yet to be determined in phase 2.
Yeah. I will say they are used regularly. I fly almost exclusively in and out of the regional terminal almost every other week, so all my flights are there.
I'm not talking about the bathroom itself. I'm
Well,
talking
but
about
just in terms of the
There's a
facilities.
building prior to
Prior
that.
to
Those are
that,
actually
yeah.
restrooms, and it's
Yeah.
only about 10 feet deep.
Yeah.
It isn't.
Okay, thank you.
So, Mr. Chair?
We had another, did you have, no, any other comments? Is there a move for the question?
Yes.
We have a motion to vote. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Unanimous support. Thank you very much, John, for that. Moving forward here, Air Museum hangar lease, Tom.
Did we have any slides on that? No, we have the report. The report?
This is a presentation of
Okay, Brian. Well, everyone knows that Palm Springs Air Museum is a tenant here and a very valued tourism attraction, right, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
And they actually need more, they need temporary space for several vintage aircraft. We have two, here we go, here's the actual report. Please allude to the beautiful color-coded report you have in your package, but you can see what they do. They're getting more and more aircraft for show, and that's a great thing. So you can see that as well. They've actually made additions to their hangar, but this addition we're talking about, here's the current Air Museum. Across the field to that is our two vacant hangars. The new U.S. Customs is going to go between there, but the two vacant hangars, we put fire trucks in one and the other's vacant, and it's going to be perfect for them for a 6 months period, Mr. Chairman, at the market value rent, and they will be very happy.
Yeah, we had a presentation, what, last meeting, 2 meetings ago, about the need for this and the expansion. Any discussion or motion first?
So moved.
Second? Peter moves. Second?
Second.
Okay. Discussion. Call for the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Very good. Okay. It's approved, Tom. We move now to the executive director and staff reports.
Well, I mentioned, Mr. Chairman, the passenger boarding bridges is proceeding with that evaluation and the specification development. The checkpoint remodel, you see construction walls down there. I just showed you a few photos of how that is going to expand. We're very excited about it, but a lot, when you open up an older patient or even a younger patient, age isn't, well, it is a little factor here. This building had some surprises. So that's just the nature of opening up an old building. ARF trucks, of course, I mentioned those as well. The car rental process, Gensler's on board. It's very exciting. A massive questionnaire and collaborative meetings have occurred with the car rentals themselves, and they have provided massive amounts of data to digest and determine the size of the facility. That's still being assembled and analyzed. The ticketing project, well underway. The big focus right now, the main construction won't start till next spring, but right now it's moving full steam ahead on the baggage handling system. That's $13 million of the $30 million project. The team from Louisville that's building it, plus the contractor, we had a 6-hour meeting last week, nothing but talking about baggage handling system, and if you want to get bored, you can join us. But it was very important. It's 30% design. That meeting between the architect, this construction manager and staff and everything, we refined it and we're excited about it. The key is to get that system manufactured and delivered to site in time for the May or June, July installation and so forth. The airline use and lease agreement is still being negotiated. That's going to take several more months. That's being led by consultant Ricondo. A lot of interesting dynamics in that discussion. We're seeking, there's different methodologies in the industry. At the recommendation of Ricondo, we're looking at other options to help us address our future capital programs and rising costs in other areas. RFP for parking's out in the street. That'll be due 12/17, Mr. Chairman, and that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. It's an exciting time with the 3 major capital projects that we have underway. I think it's going to be great for the citizens and the passengers. And those who know about it are very excited by it too. I really thank you, Tom. Commissioner reports and requests. Any requests? Any reports?
Just a reminder that there's a noise committee meeting after.
Right, I was going to do that. Actually, there's a noise committee immediately following this. I was also going to say the Arts Council, I've been in touch with Ann Sheffer, is the chair of the Arts Council. We're meeting with Tom today and the new executive director of the Annenberg Art Museum to walk through the airport and look at the art that's already on loan from the Arts Commission and see about new art coming in. So Ann and I are working very closely together, and Tom and...
Well, Mr. Chairman, more specifically though, with the concession going to be put in between the fountains, the 4 Chihulis there will have to be relocated.
Right. And Ann and I have had conversations about that.
Yeah,
That's
so
what,
you asked for the request to walk around and see what might be a good relocation.
Right. But they also want to put more art in, and they're thinking about maybe rotating out the Chihuly and putting something else in. But that's the Art Commission recommendation. I think the City Council first isn't. Yeah. But anyway, I just wanted to report on that. No other reports from commissioners or requests. Then we'll move to the report of the council actions. Past City Council actions and future it's all in your packet. Yeah. No questions on that. Correspondence? Do we have any correspondence? No correspondence. Receive and file, the activity report is attached, I believe.
No.
It's not attached, that one's not. Oh, it's the budget, I have it from the last one, I'm sorry.
We still have three airline reports that were not seen yesterday afternoon.
Yeah.
That should be available later today.
Yeah, it was the other one, is the, okay, the destinations and all. Yeah. Any other items? Nothing. Then is there a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you. Thanks, Peter.